All right, welcome back to the fifth and absolute final explainer in our series on Napoleon Hill's classic, Think and Grow Rich. Today, we are ascending right to the summit of Hill's philosophy. We're going to break down his most advanced and, frankly, most fascinating concepts. If you've been rolling with us through the first four parts, you know we've been pouring the foundation. Well, today, it's time to put the roof on this house.
Let's take a quick look at the roadmap. We've got 5 key stops on today's agenda: the Mastermind Alliance, unlocking the sixth sense, the invisible counselors, the 6 ghosts of fear, and then wrapping it all up with the final picture. Let's get right into it.
Section 1. The Mastermind Alliance, or as I like to call it, power in numbers.
So up until this point in the book, Hill's philosophy has been, heavily focused on that solitary personal ambition. But right here, we shift gears to the incredible power of minds actually working together. He defines the mastermind as the coordination of knowledge and effort in a spirit of harmony between 2 or more people working toward a definite purpose. And the underlying argument is just profound. No individual mind is ever completely self-sufficient. You simply cannot achieve massive, world-altering success entirely in isolation. It just doesn't happen.
A really great way to visualize this is by thinking about a simple battery. A single battery has juice, sure, but it has a fixed, strictly limited energy capacity. But what happens if you wire multiple batteries together? They produce way more total energy than any single one could handle alone. Hill believed that when 2 or more minds unite, you don't just get simple addition. Oh no, it's a massive multiplication of mental energy.
Now, this multiplication effect doesn't just magically happen the second you shove some people in a room together. The absolute catch here is the word harmony. Hill pointed out that every great fortune he ever studied was built by a group operating in this exact kind of alliance. But, and this is a big but, a group that argues, competes internally, or lacks trust, they'll never produce this mastermind effect. The alliance has to be incredibly genuine and completely in sync.
Okay, so that covers the practical networking side of the mastermind. But once you've mastered that external world of alliances, we really have to ask ourselves, what happens when we look inward? What happens when these principles shift from the totally practical to the borderline spiritual?
Which brings us to Section 2, unlocking the sixth sense, those flashes of insight.
This brings us to what Hill openly admits is the absolute hardest chapter in the entire book to explain. This is the exact point where things get a little mystical. He envisions this sixth sense as a literal mental antenna, a kind of receiving set in the mind. Think about it. Have you ever had a brilliant idea? A sudden red alert warning or a fully baked plan just flash into your brain completely out of nowhere? Well, Hill argues that is the sixth sense in action. It's a channel where intuition just suddenly arrives.
So where do these flashes actually come from? Hill frames these sudden messages as arriving from what he calls infinite intelligence, or possibly even from the vast accumulated experience of humanity itself. Now, it's super important to flag here that Hill is very careful to state this as his personal theory, based on his own experience. He's presenting a deeply held belief, not, peer-reviewed proven science.
Moving right along to Section 3, the invisible counselors, or setting up a nightly mental boardroom.
Let's look at how this builds into a highly practical nightly visualization exercise that Hill used to actively train that exact sixth sense we just talked about. Right before going to sleep, Hill would vividly imagine a boardroom meeting that he called his invisible counselors. And sitting at this mental table were 9 historical titans he deeply admired. We're talking Ralph Waldo Emerson, Thomas Paine, Thomas Edison, Charles Darwin, Abraham Lincoln, Luther Burbank, Napoleon Bonaparte, Henry Ford, and Andrew Carnegie. He'd literally seek their imagined advice on his daily problems.
Now, just to be crystal clear here, he wasn't claiming to literally hold a seance and speak to the dead. He is entirely explicit about that, so don't get the wrong idea. Rather, this was a brilliant psychological tool. It was a visualization exercise purely designed to discipline his own imagination. By doing this, he could work through incredibly difficult decisions by deliberately borrowing the reasoning styles of these great thinkers. Like, if he needed invention, he'd force himself to think like Edison. If he needed solid leadership, he thought like Lincoln. Pretty fascinating, right?
But here is the massive roadblock. Even if you have a perfectly harmonious mastermind alliance, and even if your intuition is fine-tuned and highly trained, there is still one thing that can tear it all down. We have to confront the hidden force that silently ruins success before it ever even gets off the ground.
And that is Section 4, the 6 ghosts of fear. It's the ultimate internal boss battle.
Hill closes his book by identifying what he firmly believes is the truest, most stubborn obstacle standing between most people and their goals, fear itself. He believed these 6 basic fears haunt practically everyone in some combination: poverty, criticism, ill health, loss of love, old age, and death. And he describes each fear as producing incredibly recognizable everyday symptoms. For instance, if you're constantly paralyzed by indecision, doubt, or extreme overcaution, well, Hill says that's actually the fear of poverty quietly pulling your strings. If you suffer from intense self-consciousness or a total lack of initiative, that is the ghost of criticism holding you back. The crazy part is, most people never examine these fears closely enough to realize they are the ones actually in the driver's seat.
But hey, there is incredibly good news here. Hill's central and honestly most empowering claim is that fear is absolutely not a fixed personality trait. It is merely a state of mind. And because it's just a state of mind, it means we can analyze it, understand it, and deliberately swap it out. You can literally replace fear with faith and definiteness of purpose. You are definitely not stuck with your ghosts.
Which brings us to Section 5, the final picture, completing the journey.
This right here is the culmination of our entire journey through this classic text. Across this 5-part explainer series, we followed Hill's philosophy step by step. We've seen that ultimate success isn't just one magic trait, it's a layered process. It requires starting with that burning desire and faith. It requires fueling that fire with persistence and imagination. From there, it expands outward into powerful alliances of minds, the mastermind. It expands inward by sharpening our intuition through the 6th sense. And finally, the whole thing is permanently unlocked by having the raw courage to face down our own fears. That right there is the complete picture Napoleon Hill laid out for us.
If you followed along with us through this entire series, seriously, thank you for growing with us and exploring this complete picture. But, as we know, learning is only useful if it's applied. So I'll leave you with this final, vital question. Which of those 6 ghosts of fear is quietly controlling your behavior right now? And more importantly, which one are you going to drag into the light and conquer today? See you in the next explainer.